I spent the past 300 hours watching Pokemon, and I just want to know how this was possible. There is a 97% chance you never noticed these 21 plot holes I'm about to tell you. Like, let's stop for a moment and think about this. Who makes the laws of the Pokemon world? Are elections held? How does any of it work? I mean, there are police who enforce laws. Some gym leaders act as the mayor of their town. Who appoints them? I want to know, because Pokemon has never even tried to answer any of these questions. They have, however, implied that whoever emerges as region's champion will have an influence that is very similar to being president. Think about this. It makes sense when someone like Lance or Cynthia is in charge. Does it make sense for it to be a 10-year-old? Can they really be trusted with that power? I just find this weird. But what I find weirder is this guy, Looker. In the Platinum game, Looker swears he is a member of the Interpol when players first meet him. It is quite confusing because it implies that there is some kind of Pokemon United Nations. You see, it's just in a game, so it doesn't really matter to me. What matters to me is the fact that there's a lot of farmland in Pokemon regions, but there's no Department of Agriculture to oversee it all. I need answers, but I'm pretty sure the franchise will likely never answer me. I guess we'll never know if there is a Department of Agriculture or not. Neither will we know who Ash's father is. Based on the evidence and many fan theories, Ash's father is either Professor Oak, Silver, or this guy. But it's actually none of these men. Know what makes this really crazy? Is the fact the producers have not really given us anything to work with. Maybe the producers just want us to focus on Ash's unconditionally supportive mother who was always there to nurse his party back to health when the Pokemon Center is too far away? Or maybe the producers don't want us to know that Ash's dad went to get milk one day and never came back. The lack of milk and a father would explain why Ash hasn't grown an inch in 20 years. You see, even though Ash is often shown to be celebrating his own birthday, he still remains the same optimistic 10-year-old who set out to become the best Pokemon trainer in the world 20 years ago. Of course, many popular shows operate on a floating timeline, like The Simpsons or even Rick and Morty, which is why their characters never age. But other characters age in Pokemon, so it's not really operating on a floating timeline. Maybe Ash is simply too popular a character to age out of the franchise. The show may lose its appeal if it changes Ash too much. So the same way that Nurse Joy looks the same in every town, Ash has to look the same in every episode. Even in the 63rd episode, the Battle of the Badge, when we all got to see Mewtwo, the incredibly powerful Pokemon was used by Giovanni at the Viridian City Gym to fold his enemies. Matter of fact, neither Ash nor anyone else in the gym was able to stand up against the might of Mewtwo. Then Giovanni abruptly ended the fight, recalled Mewtwo to him, and ordered Mewtwo to leave immediately on an unknown assignment. You see, it was this unknown assignment that hindered Mewtwo unaliving every Pokemon within a 100-mile radius. Now, the thing is, the anime never showed us what the assignment was that saved the other Pokemon from Mewtwo's wrath. Could it have been lazy riding that saved these poor Pokemon from Mewtwo? But, you see, I know the mission they went on. They swore that they were on a mission to get you to subscribe to my YouTube channel. If I were you, I'd subscribe before Mewtwo and Giovanni come knocking on my door. Can you recall the time Brock left Misty and Ash midway through their quest in order to work with the beautiful Professor Ivy? The job was such a dream come true for Brock because he could explore his love for Pokemon while working for a hot boss. But the dream didn't last and things fell apart. Then, Brock rejoined Ash and Misty after leaving his job. Thing is, Brock has never specifically told us why he left Ivy. He has only merely hinted that he did not part on the best of terms. Now, anytime someone mentions Professor Ivy, Brock gets pissed off. But what pisses me off is the fact that professors don't have the best interests of trainers in mind. You see, the Pokemon professors, Professor Oak, entrust trainers, like Ash, to capture as many Pokemon as possible and bring them to the lab for further study. I mean, the professors know that catching some of the more exclusive Pokemon will be very difficult, especially if a trainer doesn't have a specific move to counter its moves. But doesn't make them give any further help. The professors could just help out all the trainers by giving them all the starter Pokemon just lying about their labs. But they they don't. Imagine a child completing the Pokédex without a lot of help from other Pokemon. Now, imagine a Cubone without its mother's skull on its head. Did you know the Pokédex entry of the Cubone states that Cubone wears the skull of its dead mother? It just confuses me to think that all Cubone have a dead mother, but not all. In episode 2 of Pokemon Origins, there's a scene where a living Marowak stands in front of her baby Cubone, which is wearing a skull on its head. Whose skull is this? Its mother isn't dead yet, so where did it get this skull from? The same way I just can't understand that is the same way I don't know how Pokeballs came to be. I mean, Pokemon is a show filled with magical creatures with amazing powers. But the thing I find the most fascinating is the balls they live in. Think about it. These balls are no bigger than the fist of a child, but can somehow shrink the mass of a living, breathing animal and teleport them inside a containment area? Damn, Elon Musk better not hear of this tech because it is so advanced it's almost like magic. But even though this ball is so interesting, we never get a satisfactory explanation for how these balls came to be. Neither do we get an explanation as to how Pokemon existed before Arceus did. In the movie Arceus and the Jewel of Life, Ash and company go way back in time for the discovery of new Pokemon. But in the past, Marcus had a Heatran and a Bronzong, and the kitchen boy was having Cyndaquil and Chikorita cooking. I say let them cook, because some Pokemon's existence is not even logical. You see, Pokemon who have accessories as part of their design can be pretty cool looking, but it gets crazy. For example, the Pokédex implies that Farfetch'd gains its stock after birth. This is okay in theory, but when a player hatches a Farfetch'd egg, it will come out of the egg already holding the stalk. The same goes for Pokemon like Sock and Throw, who wear clothes. The Pokédex never states whether that karate gear is part of their body or not, but either way, it's weird to think about. Perhaps the weirdest one to think about is Kangaskhan, who will hatch out of their egg with a baby already in their pouch. Where did the baby come from in the first place? Is the baby Kangaskhan part of its mother? Another plot hole about Kangaskhan lies in its mega evolution. When Kangaskhan mega evolves, only its baby changes. What if a Kangaskhan mega evolves without the baby in its pouch? Does it remain the same as its original form? The plot hole that just blows my mind the most is the fact that everyone in the Pokemon universe took immortality as child's play. In Pokemon X and Y, there is the mysterious AZ character who is revealed to be an immortal being and has lived for over 3,000 years, thanks to the power of the ultimate weapon. But no one is asking any questions. You see, with the confirmation that immortality is possible, surely all the world's scientists would want to be looking into it so they could hopefully find a way to achieve it without sacrifice, right? Even though the research would be fruitless, at least they just have to try. But the fact that they don't even try is just crazy. Speaking of immortality, we gotta give Pikachu a shout out. Bro went from being a stubborn, weak electric type to defeating legendary Pokemon. The anime took the regular electric rodent from the games and gave him a personality that endeared him to generations of Pokemon fans like no other Pokemon has ever managed to do. But this doesn't begin to explain his wildly fluctuating power levels. In the beginning, Pikachu was depicted as a pretty mid-tier Pokemon, but as his popularity increased, he started taking on bigger and better foes, and still somehow winning? He's even achieved victory over a legendary Pokemon. Damn, I want what he's having. What I don't want is the GS Ball. I'm talking about the mysterious Pokeball Ash received from Professor Ivy. Nobody's able to open it, not even Professor Oak, and thus Ash is told to deliver it to a Pokeball researcher named Kurt. Ash does so, and the ball is never heard from again. There was a lot of tension and mystique surrounding this ball, which is why I was so disappointed when nothing came of it. Why couldn't they have just done what they did in the manga? In the manga, the GS Ball actually contains Celebi, but due to the fact that the fourth Pokemon movie revolves around Celebi, the team behind the anime decided to drop the idea. That's just the G Ball. Would you also like to know about the G Men? There are a a lot of secret organizations within the Pokemon world. The most famous among them is Team Rocket. But most of these organizations are quite open about their evil, dastardly nature, usually looking to capture Pokemon for their own personal gain. But one shadowy organization is apparently on the side of the Pokemon, which is G-Men. As it turns out, Lance, a powerful trainer who goes up against Team Rocket in several episodes, claims to belong to a secret group known as the G-Men, whose aim is to protect the Pokemon of the world. These G-Men are starting to sound more like X-Men. Damn, there's so many gaping holes in logic when it comes to the world of Pokemon that it's best not to think about it. In the beginning, it was easy to believe we were only viewing a tiny portion of the Pokemon universe, which dealt exclusively with the world of the Pokemon battles. But as the series went on, we were introduced to entire cities which seemed solely devoted to Pokemon training, which just begs the question, how does the economy in such cities work? And how can they have technology used to shrink animals, heal every conceivable injury, and carry out extreme genetic modifications, and still look like they're stuck in the early 21st century? The one that I find to be the most mind-bending plot hole is Arceus' inception. Who, or what, created the egg that birthed Arceus? Why would Arceus, the literal god of Pokemon, allow a 10-year-old to catch it and tell it what to do? These were just the plot holes. Check out this video to find out errors you didn't notice in Pokemon.